So we have these older cabinets on with old hardware that's been painted over multiple times. So we're gonna take them out, putty, sand, and then put new hardware on. So to take overlay hinges off, I would probably suggest taking off the 2 screws here first. And again, you'll probably have to chisel through to get a good contact between the drill bit and the screw. And then once you have those off, then you can work on chiseling out the 3 screws in here. And then again, getting good contact between the bit and the screws to be able to pull them off. It's always a good idea to mark which one you have on top. So you know which ones you're working with. So before you start chiseling out some of the paint in here with a screwdriver and your hammer, try to see where the screw originally was, and if you can't, you know, sometimes on an angle or shining some light in there, you can start to see where the screw used to be before all these layers and layers and layers of paint. So then you can find where it is, kind of give it a few light taps with the hammer until you feel it seated a little bit better, and then you can start hitting the hammer a little bit harder to get each side out. As I take the hammer, I can lightly twist to see whether I'm being seated properly into that screw or not. A few more light hits and now it's definitely seated in there, so I can start hitting the hammer a little bit harder, or hitting the screwdriver a little bit harder. And to get the paint out of these, I'm trying to see where the screw is, so I can see that it's going along this way and this way. So I'll position the screwdriver in there lightly, and I can a few light taps to start to feel and wiggle to make sure it's in there seated properly, and then I can hit some stronger taps to make sure I'm getting that. And now we can definitely see where the screw head is, so that we can remove it with our drill. Once you know it's seated, kind of give it a little wiggle. You can make sure you really press on it, and then start to unscrew it, and you'll see the screw start to come out. And make sure you keep a good amount of pressure on it. Now that you got all of the screws out, you could run a knife just lightly on the sides around all around these, making sure you're holding it in place so it doesn't just fall on you. Or you can just kind of open it all the way up and probably slowly moving it till it gets over there, and then it's kind of hard to do one-handed, unfortunately. But there you go. Pops right off. So what happens if one of the screws does strip? Well, luckily we got things like this. These speed out bits, where you go with this little bit of a jagged tip first, and you put in the chuck and put it in reverse, and it'll carve it out, and then you flip it to the other side to try and grab it and pull it out. And what I found sometimes, if that doesn't work, just start to increase the size of this side, and hopefully one of them will start to eventually catch. So sometimes I start with a bit of a smaller bit, depending on the size of the screw. This is a bit of a smaller screw here. Again, you want to put as much pressure as you can onto the drill as you start to turn it around. Then you flip the bit, and again, put a lot of pressure in reverse. If that didn't catch, then I guess we'll try a slightly larger bit. I also like to try to keep the drill setting to a lower setting. That way you can start to hear it. The clutch will engage, letting you know that you're close to getting the thing in there. might be a little bit difficult. You might need to push with both hands. Okay, by the third size, so I ended up using the third size here, and using the, I guess the part that digs it out. I was able to get the screw started to come out here. So now I can just grab a set of pliers or use the other side and get the rest of it out. Again, these little bits are not the easiest things to use, but yeah, you have to put a lot of pressure. So I used my back against the other cabinets on the other side here and pushed with both hands. There I have one hand doing the trigger and my other hand on the back, really pushing it into there to try to dig into the screw. So it does take a lot of force from my experience. So again, when you have these screws that are basically painted in, you can barely see them. Some of them have had worse than this. Just make sure you chisel out a little bit with a screwdriver. So you can take the screwdriver, make sure it's small enough to fit in there. It's gonna get a nice fit. Hammer it in there a little bit, just nice solid but light taps. Get it on each corner so that it'll look like the screw. And now you can go ahead and put some force and screw it. So now you know where it is. Get your bit in there. Put a good amount of force down on it. And I'll screw it right out.